Some of the best honorable companions who had missed al-Jihad in Badr invasion suggested that the Prophet should go out of Medina and urged him to accept their point of view. One of them said, "O Messenger of Allah, for a long time we have been looking forward to this day, and we have implored Allah to make such a day draw near. Thanks to Allah, it is time to fight, so let us go out and fight our enemies, lest they should think that we have lost heart and do not dare to fight them." Hamza, the paternal uncle of the Prophet, who had already covered the ornaments of his sword with idolaters' blood in Badr battle, was ahead of those enthusiasts who urged him to go out and meet the disbelievers. He said to the Prophet, "By Allah, who has sent the book down unto you, I will not taste food till I fight them with my sword outside Medina." After weighing careful the pros and cons of the issue, it was decided that the enemy should be resisted outside the city at Uhud, dividing the Islamic army into phalanxes and departure to the battlefield, ascending the pulpit at the Friday congregational prayer. The Prophet urged the people in his sermon to fight courageously. "If you remain steadfast," he said, "you will be held by the power of the Almighty." Then he commanded his men to make ready for the battle. Most of them rejoiced greatly. He led the afternoon prayer with crowds of people. Then he entered his house accompanied by his two friends Abu Bakr and Umar. They helped him dress and wear his headcloth. He armed himself and wore two armors, one over the other. He wore his sword and went out to meet people. People were waiting for him impatiently. Sa'd blamed people for pressing on the Prophet. They said, "You have forced the Messenger of Allah to fight the enemy outside Medina." Therefore, they were determined to leave the whole matter to the Prophet and blame themselves for what they had already done. When the Prophet came out, they said, "O Messenger of Allah, we should have not disagreed with you, so you are free to do what you desire. If you prefer to stay inside Medina, we will stay with you." Upon this, the Messenger of Allah remarked, "It does not become a prophet that once he had put an armor, he should take it off until Allah has decided between him and the enemy." The Prophet divided his army into 3 battalions. Al-Muhajirin battalion, under the command of Musab. Al-Ansari battalion was commanded by Uzayd. Al-Ansari Khazraj battalion was with Al-Hubab. The army consisted of 1,000 fighters, 100 of them armored, another 50 horsemen. He appointed Ibn Maktum to lead the people in prayer in Medina. Departure was announced and the army moved northwards with the 2 Sards, who were armored, running in front of the army. Upon passing along Al-Wada mountain trail, he saw a armed battalion, which were detached from the main body of the army. The Prophet inquired who they were, and he was told that they were Jews and were allies of Al-Khazraj. They told him that they wanted to contribute to the fight against the idolaters. "Have they embraced Islam?" The Prophet asked. "No," they said. So he refused admitting them and said that he would not seek the assistance of disbelievers against the idolaters. Parading the army. As soon as he reached a location called Ash-Shaykhan, he paraded his army. He dismissed those whom he considered to be disabled or too young to stand the fight. Among them were Abdullah pointed out that he had shared in the fight that day. The Messenger of Allah allowed both Rafi bin Khadij and Samura to join the army. Though they were too young, the former proved to be skillful at shooting arrows. The latter wrestled the former and beat him. The admission of Rafi made Sumara say, "I am stronger than him, I can overcome him." When the Prophet heard this saying, he ordered them to wrestle. They did. Samura won, so he was also admitted. Passing the night between Uhud and Medina, as night fell upon them, there they performed both the sunset and the evening prayers and spent the night there as well. 50 people were chosen to guard the camp and go round it. Muhammad, the hero of the brigade of Ka'b, was in charge of the guards, whereas Dafwan undertook the responsibility of guarding the Prophet in particular. The rebellion of Abdullah and his followers at the end of the night and just before it was daybreak, the Prophet moved, and when he got to Ash-Shout, he observed the dawn prayer. There he was, close enough to the enemy that they could see one another. It was there that Abdullah, the hypocrite, rebelled against the Muslims. 1/3 of the army withdrew with him. That is to say, 300 fighters. He said, "We do not know why we shall kill ourselves. He claimed that his withdrawal was no more than showing protest against the Messenger of Allah, who had already refused his opinion and accepted that of the others. Undoubtedly, that was not the real cause of his detachment. If it had been the refusal of his opinion, as the hypocrite claimed, there would have no sense whatsoever for his joining the prophetic army. If it had been so, he would have refused to go out with the army from the very beginning of the march. As a matter of fact, the real purpose of this rebellion, withdrawal, and detachment at this delicate and awkward position and time was to produce bewilderment, confusion of mind, and disorder in the Muslims' army who were within the sight and hear range of the enemy, who were also